Admit all. All right.
Okay, so good afternoon, and thank you for joining the Scandalaire Center for Interdisciplinary Innovation and Entrepreneurship for this conversation with Mike Bynum. My name is Aiden Stern, and I'm a pre-med rising sophomore with an undecided major in the College of Art. I'm also a Scandalaire's intern working with Adalo this summer. So as Washington University's hub of innovation and entrepreneurship, the Scandalaire Center is committed to providing a collaborative and welcoming event experience. Today's event is part of our Scandalaire Startup Webinar Series, which is a platform for alumni to share the knowledge and talents that have set them on a path of professional purpose, share their expertise, and support the entrepreneurial endeavors of our community of innovators and entrepreneurs. It's also part of our Scandalaire's internship program, with the Scandalaire's interns joining this event. Please note that all attendees are muted for today's event. The conversation will be followed by a Q&A, so if you have any questions, go ahead and submit them in the chat function. Mike Bynum is a recent MBA graduate from Washington University. He is a transitioning veteran, having served in the US Army as a Korean linguist, interrogator, and infantry officer. Mike's expertise is in cross-functional team leadership, organizational process improvement, and business development. Mike also serves on the board of directors of a St. Louis-based nonprofit, the Balsa Foundation, which focuses on funding first-time entrepreneurs from underserved communities in St. Louis. Mike is the director of accelerator programs for Stadia Ventures, the global sports innovation hub for entrepreneurs, industry partners, and investors located in St. Louis. Moderating today's chat is managing director of the Scandalaire Center and assistant vice provost for innovation entrepreneurship, Tu Luskery. Tu and Mike, I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks.
All right, Aiden, thank you so much for the introduction. Really excited to have the Scandalaire's interns as a part of this and the entire Scandalaire's community of innovators and entrepreneurs with us. I recommend anyone watching to choose a presenter view or speaker view during this. You're certainly welcome to do the Brady Bunch view, but I think it's easiest to pick the speaker view so you can get your eyes on who's talking during the session. I'm really excited to spend some time with Mike, who, as Aiden mentioned, is a WashU alumnus and somebody who's doing great things in the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem here in St. Louis. The first thing, for those that are unfamiliar, Mike, maybe you can share a little bit of information about Stadia, give us a background on the role that the accelerator plays in the entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Right. And again, thank you for having me. It's always an honor to come back and speak to WashU students. But yeah, Stadia Ventures, it's a venture capital firm first. We invest in sports tech and esports businesses. And to kind of break that down even further, we have some verticals that we invest in. So it's AI, machine learning, AR, VR, human performance, esports and gaming, and also some outdoor sports tech per se. If you looked at our portfolio, you kind of see a wide variety of companies that go into those spaces. So we also say, and we also have an accelerator with the VC firm as well, which is kind of where I tip my hat, from day to day. Twice a year, we open up an application and we get, I'd say pre-COVID, we got between 250 to 300 applications for our accelerator program. That program is a 14-week program where every other week we would have the company fly into either St. Louis or Dallas. And From Wednesday to Friday, we would basically do some very advanced biz dev with them. That would consist of, Wednesday afternoon, really having the cohort work together. Thursday would be full of introductions, sales introductions, investor introductions, and then also guest speaker sessions. And then Fridays were dedicated to their mentor teams. So each company gets surrounded by a lead mentor, a numbers mentor, and then 2 to 3 additional mentors that are experts in their space or parallel to their space. So it's often referred to as the executive MBA of accelerators, because you have some similar to what I was running in St. Louis, where it's almost like every day working on pitch decks and motivation and just all the X's and O's you need to have a successful business, all the way down to starting a bank account. Whereas Stadia, we're more on the advanced end. We're dealing with late seed, early A round companies.
Great. So I know you just had your very successful finalist pitch day for the most recent cohort. I was honored to be one of the judges and step in there and see firsthand what you guys were working on and how those ventures developed. So I know the time and energy you put in there really paid off. Can you tell us maybe a little bit about how you adapted during COVID, or how things changed for you guys?
Well, it was interesting because the value of the program is that companies come in from all over the world. We've had companies from South Africa, Australia, UK, Canada, and of course all over the United States. And those introductions that I was talking about, we would get them in front of these people. So it's the head of innovation for Under Armour. It's the president of US Soccer. It's the ownership group of the Cardinals. It's the DeWitts. Whoever they needed to get in front of to accelerate their business, that's what we would do. So we had a tough decision to make in March. Actually, we were in our first session. We were right there at the B School. We were at Olin doing our investor round robin. So that first session for the cohort, we have them pitch to investors and get critical feedback, almost like a freebie. So we did that right there at WashU, and then all of a sudden people's phones started going off, and that's when, oh my gosh, the new NYC airport is shutting down, and so people started rushing out of the room, and we're like, hey, we have to fly back home. We had one of our founders of Edge was like, hey, I'm scared I'm going to get stuck in the United States. I got to fly back to the UK now. So everyone scattered, and then really we had a decision to make. What do we do now? And for me, it's like we just keep going. We go virtual, and really I just mirrored our in-person program and did that through Zoom. So.
Do you think that there are anything that you guys discovered or had to adapt because of COVID that might stick around in your next cycle? I mean, say
Yeah.
3 cycles from now, what might be still hanging around from the COVID era?
So 3 cycles from now, you will see that we will have a virtual element because what has happened since going virtual is, we were already a global accelerator, but it just became more global. We've had outreach at the state level in both China and Japan asking, hey, can Japanese startups apply? Can Chinese startups apply? And with the way that we run operations, there needs to be a virtual piece. Flying in every other week is going to be difficult coming from certain parts of the globe. So you will see that. What I'd like to see and what I think I'll make happen, 3 cohorts from now, is we will have a hybrid program. It's 14 weeks every other week we're in session, but what I think I'll do is session 1 will be in person, session 4 will be in person, and then session 7 will be in person. So just 3 times we'll go in person, and then the rest will be virtual, because I'm sure, as you've seen, it's a lot easier to get guest speakers in. It's a lot easier to get folks participating from all over the globe now. There's no need for a flight and hotel and, let me check my schedule to see if I can move meetings around. It's okay. I have some white space on the calendar. I can make it happen.
Well, good. Yeah, it's exciting to think about that prospect, and certainly getting people involved who can't necessarily make it to St. Louis or to Dallas, but can support your cohort in that development. That's really exciting to see how that will continue. Before you got into this, you were a WashU MBA. You were wandering the halls of Simon Hall and Knight and Bauer Hall on campus. Tell us a little bit about your experience there. What were you involved with, and what kind of opportunities were you looking for when you decided to do an MBA?
Well, I'll say I was like the majority of my classmates. The aspiration was to be a consultant at McKinsey or BCG or you name it. That's what we were trying to do. So early on, just spent a lot of time working on the case study interviews and things like that. But interesting, I had a good conversation with my mom about just how the experience was going. And she just reminded me that, hey, this is an opportunity for you to explore and really stretch yourself thin where otherwise as a professional, you wouldn't be able to. So I ended up really just going out into the community of St. Louis, volunteering different places to include WashU. I walked over to athletics and spoke to Anthony Asma. He was the new athletic director at WashU at the time, and basically said, hey, do you need any help? And they brought me on as a graduate assistant. Went out into St. Louis and volunteered for the Balsa Foundation and the Balsa Group. So I was also, helping out first-time entrepreneurs from underserved communities, and also doing biotech consulting for Balsa Group as well. And then walked over to the St. Louis Sports Commission and asked if I could help out. And they brought me on board, and I helped out with the Biz Dash 5K, big 5K that goes on there in St. Louis. And, it was just it was 2 years of just building relationships in St. Louis that have actually had great returns. These are all people I consider friends now, people that are still reaching out for me to help out, if I can, whether it's, hey, Mike, can you come work registration at Biz Dash, or, hey, can you join our board at St. Louis Sports Commission? So, it's just one of those things that, you got to give before you receive,
Yeah, I think our students can relate to that. I hope that they hear the message of get out there and find some opportunities. A lot of that was you going out and knocking on people's doors and finding things that interested you, and even creating opportunities, maybe not necessarily responding to, here's an opportunity for a graduate assistant position or a volunteer role. You went and created some of that, which I think is really great. What was your favorite class? Favorite class as an Olin MBA?
Favorite class? Honestly, it was strategy with Elfenbein, but only because I like challenging them. So, what they do with the vets is we have to come early because we're not as smart as everyone else. So we got to come in a little early, get some warm up. So we did the vet boot camp before the MBA program kicked off. And I mean, he basically set it up from there. He's like, I love you vets because you always will challenge me in class. You're not scared to challenge. So I just challenged him all the time. So it was fun, but I thought that was one of the more interesting classes. There was also power and politics. I mean, that one was pretty cool as well. I felt like I took away a lot from that because it's one of those things where you just see it. Once we're done with school and you're really involved professionally, there are stakeholders everywhere that you have to deal with. And it was interesting to see both, lessons from corporate strategy and also lessons from power and politics apply right away.
So I'm sure Dan will be happy to hear of him getting named as your favorite class. He's a good supporter of the center, been involved in with things with us at different points, which is great. Um, and you mentioned your experience as a veteran. My next question was actually going to be about how might that have influenced your leadership or your entrepreneurial behaviors, or some things in that space.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I'll share a story. I felt like a fish out of water at WashU for a little bit. You've got folks to my left and right doing pivot tables and just some cool gee whiz stuff that, hey, we're not doing that in the military per se. Wasn't really necessary, but I had a great conversation with an instructor, and I won't name him. It was a private conversation, but I was a little frustrated, like, hey, why am I here? And really, it came down to the issue that WashU has great foresight, and what WashU was seeing is that in the corporate community, there's a lack of leadership. There's a lack of folks that are willing to make tough decisions. And that was the value of bringing vets into the program, was to not only lead, but also share the value of leadership with the students to our left and right. So it just really clicked for me then. Okay, this is why we're all here, and this is the value that I bring, because honestly, for all vets that are transitioning, that is the hardest part, is how does this translate to the private sector? And it's very hard to translate it. But now I'm taking that lesson that I picked up at WashU and sharing it with vets that I work with in the St. Louis community, and saying, hey, this is the value, that your ability to stand in front of 20 people, 100 people, 500 people, and make a decision. It's just not for everyone. And it was most apparent in an interview that I had for a summer internship. It was like they asked, tell me a time where you led at least 4 or 5 people, So it's like, oh gosh, which one of these 100 stories do you want? So that was great. Also, it was explained to me that, hey, we don't need you to exactly crank out pivot tables once you leave here. What we need you to do is be able to call BS, and have that person working for you who's making it happen, but you need to be able to call BS if need be. So I was able to translate that a lot better than anything else while I was there.
Yeah, I think there's this element of being able to make the decision quickly, but also then getting people to get on board for that decision, right? And convincing people this is the direction and this is how we're going to move forward. Well,
that's the thing is, and again, crazy that it was more brought to light in the program than before the program, because to a veteran, those are just the annoying things you have to deal with in the military, is getting everyone on board by, you can't exactly be nice about it, but I've always felt that, especially as a leader, you're going to rise as far as your subordinates take you. And so that was really the big thing that I took away from it. And to this day, whether it's a small team or a large team, everyone has to be on the same page. Everyone has to understand what's going on. And I think the more people that realize that and stick to that, the better. If the organization is 200 people or 20 people, I should be able to walk in and ask anyone, like, and I won't say what's the mission, but I'll say, what's the goal? What's our goal here? What are we trying to accomplish? And say in a large organization, it could be the janitor, it could be the secretary, or it could be the VP in the C-suite. What's our goal here?
Yeah, and that's a good point too, thinking about how in that type of organization, how everyone plays a role, in the organization towards that success. So shifting gears a little bit, although esports, I suppose there are team esports that I don't know this space in depth. So I wanted to get a little bit of insights from you, because it does appear that esports are continuing to grow and really take off. A lot of universities have esports teams, things like that. And just the commercial success of gamers you're seeing on Twitch in different areas, lots of different activities there. And so given your background there, wondering what's next in that space, what might be needed from startups or entrepreneurs
Right.
as esports evolve.
So one thing I'd like to recommend folks do is really go out and Google, picks and shovels of esports. And also I'd say subscribe to Convoy Ventures newsletter. They put out a lot of great stuff on the industry, but the picks and shovels are really just the infrastructure around esports. A lot of folks kind of get, I'd say, tunnel vision and focused in on the esports teams, but there's so much more than that. What you're starting to see in the industry now is those teams are now needing professionalism to support what they're trying to do, especially as COVID pretty much put more esports up front. You're starting to see universities cancel fall sports, but hey, esports can still go. And then now you're dealing with name, image, likeness, where students and student athletes are going to be able to make a little bit of money doing what they do. So, it's going to be an interesting time to watch how this evolves. But again, for folks coming out of B school, don't get hyper focused on just like the team aspect. Get hyper focused on some of the business needs and business demands that this industry is going to need. I sat, last year we had a gathering of, the esports experts down in Dallas. And Dallas is basically I'd say the second largest capital of esports in the United States. And you simply ask that question, what is esports? And you will get multiple answers. So there's no true answer. There's a ton of stats out there, big numbers as far as the total addressable market. But it's going to require folks with business acumen that come in and help these teams, these brands, these franchises take advantage of it. And
I know you're a soccer guy, and you work the Man U squad on FIFA. How competitive are you? If we look at the FIFA ranks, where do we see Mike Bynum? In terms of the competitive pool, are you doing that? Is that for fun, or is that a place where you make some noise?
So I'm a campaign kind of guy, if that makes sense to any gamers out there. I don't do much of the online one-on-ones, even though I'm pretty good at it. I've done some good things there, but most recently I just signed up for a tournament. This will be the first one I've signed up for since my undergrad days. It's one of those things where gaming has always just kind of been an escape for me. So it's just kind of surreal now that the esports industry is where it is, because say back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was playing EVE Online, and I never imagined that like things would be where they're at right now. And now I'm talking on panels about the business of esports. I just joined the board of Esports Trade Association, where the mission is to bring business and esports together. So it's just been a lifelong journey for me, and I'm still rocking out on FIFA. I saw a note pop up on LinkedIn that one of our mentors in the program, his company is hosting a FIFA tournament. So I was like, why not? I'll jump in there. So
yeah, that's great. It's interesting, as you talk about esports and thinking about the other opportunity, like there's the competitor, but there are all these other pieces that come along with that space. And FIFA and the EA games, I think, are a good example of how important the soundtrack is,
right.
and the music that goes into something like that. And when you start to think about all the other pieces of the industry. And with the Scandalaris Center, we work with students, undergrads and grads, and engineers and artists and architects and philosophers, and I mean everybody on campus, all engaged in and around innovation and entrepreneurship. And so there's a role for all these different pieces of our ecosystem to get involved in something like esports, because it touches so many different aspects. If you do what you just described, which is take a step back from, okay, it's one person on the Nintendo, right? It's sort of this bigger operation. So I appreciate that insight, and the tools of some of the things that people are interested to take advantage of some of those resources and look into to learn a little bit more. I wanted to ask about St. Louis, our fellowship program and the internship program we host. Those students, although worked virtually this summer, but they were all working for St. Louis area startups. So what can you say about St. Louis as a region, as a space for innovation entrepreneurship? And how can we continue to position ourselves sort of as this place for startups that people should be interested in building and growing their companies here?
Right. One thing I'll share, just with kind of doing some travels with Stadia, as much as you can point to things that are wrong in St. Louis, the startup ecosystem is the absolute right thing that's going on here. If it's one of these places where if you throw a rock, you hit an entrepreneur, you hit a startup founder. And there are a lot of cities like Dallas and others and suburbs of those cities that want to build an ecosystem like St. Louis has. So I guess my best advice is take advantage of that. Get out there, whether it's, Cortex is the obvious one, Venture Cafe is that obvious one, but gosh, me and my wife were just sitting around the other day and it was like, God, there are so many events going on. This is pre-COVID, of course. Every night there was something, a pitch competition or, a maker's event, or it just would go on and on and on. You're starting to see huge buildings go up. I believe it's called the Foundry. It's along 64. There's going to be a ton of, food and beverage based entrepreneurs in there. Cortex is still booming. There's so much opportunity to get out there and really make an impact. And I think while you're a student, take advantage of it.
That's great. Great advice, Mike, and appreciate your insights. Last week on with Stadia, you were putting your founders on the hot seat. I hope you didn't feel too much on the hot seat for me, but we have some questions now that are going to come from the audience, and I can't guarantee what they will present to you. But Sydney Everett, she's our marketing and communications specialist with the Scandalaris Center, will have some questions, and then Rachel, who's one of the interns in our program, will field some of the questions for you from our audience. I'm really excited to hear a bit more. Sydney?
Right.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for being with us today. We've got some great questions from the audience. Our first question is from a member of the audience who asked, for a Black woman-owned esports startup, where would be the best place to start my search for funding?
Yeah, so the best place to start, again, St. Louis is throw a rock, hit an entrepreneur. Same deal for funders. There's so many programs here in St. Louis that are early stage company focused, but also focused in on women-led startups, minority-led startups. There's a healthy menu here in St. Louis. If esports really is the road you're trying to go down, I would say, hey, is LA or Dallas in the works for you? Are you willing to pack up and head down there and really dive into the deep end? Because sometimes in the startup space, that's what's required. So, I would also look there. Again, even a bit of a higher level of organization that is focused on female and minority-led founders. I compare one down there, which Rise Ventures, where it's almost like Balsa Foundation, but it's a VC firm. So there's just a ton of great stuff going on all over the country. You just have to be aware of it and reach out to folks and have that conversation. I think if any of you are on Twitter and are in the venture capital threads, there's a lot of talk about minority founders and missed opportunities and getting rid of warm introductions and things like that. If there's ever a time, now is the time. And for example, there's an account. It's at Arlen was here, ARLAN was here. She is the founder of Backstage Capital. She's a St. Louis native. She actually just invested $100,000 in a sports tech business that was too early for Stadia. So there are a ton of funders out there that do believe in diverse funding. So I don't think it's hard to find right now.
All right, thank you so much for being here with us again today. This next question is from a WashU student. So what are your recommendations for someone who has no business experience? How can they get started?
Go get business experience. Again, the startup space is the best space to do it. With the skill sets that you're learning at WashU, you could legitimately go to a startup and be their CFO or their CMO or their CRO. Especially for a very early stage startup, there's not many funds flowing through there. So you're going to be working for free anyway. But that's something that you can put on your resume, and that's going to be valuable because, that kind of organization, you're having to do everything. You might be working on the finances or the marketing piece, but you're also taking the trash out. You're also taking phone calls. You're also doing sales. If there is some sort of pitch event, you're there helping out, working on the deck, or you're pitching. There's a ton of opportunity to get some on-the-job training here in St. Louis, and I'd say just don't be scared to go out there and do it. You're going to make mistakes, but what perfect place than the startup community to get some things done where your most successful startup founders have many failures before their success.
Our next question is from another audience member. And you kind of touched on this about the potential of esports now that we're in a time where traditional sports aren't being played. So someone asked, are there a lot of universities starting esports leagues? And how might someone at WashU start one?
Yeah, so the interesting part is, say before COVID, there were some interesting trends where at some schools, it was the engineering school that was standing up esports teams in order to get them scholarships. It was a little bit tricky with NCAA rules because, esports teams, they're going into tournaments and winning money. So, I think that's why you see a lot of esports teams resting in the intramural space. But you can do whatever you put your mind to. There's a ton of opportunity in the intramural space at WashU. I'm absolutely sure of it, just from my time over there at athletics, working in that building. And Anthony Asma just had to cancel fall sports. Walk over there and talk to him. Ask him if esports is an option. And for me, it's one of those things where not only just go over there and ask, but come with a proposal. Everyone's really smart that gets in the WashU. So put together a nice proposal, walk over there and say, hey, we would like to do something like this. What do you think? And if it doesn't work for, say, athletics per se, he's also in charge of intramurals as well. So there's a ton of opportunity there. I say go take advantage of it. And we're in a space where you can kind of make it happen.
So our next question is, how can I, as a student, get the max out of WashU in terms of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it'll be the same theme for me. And and mind you, I'm just going to be full disclosure. I went against the norm at WashU. I did so much off campus. I wasn't like at our holiday party and stuff. I was like running a pitch competition for Balsa. So I'd say, be balanced about it, but, get off the island of WashU's campus and get out there into the community, and don't be scared to do that. Because I'll tell you the craziest experience I had. I went and spoke to some entrepreneurs in North County, and it was sad, but it was like, hey, we don't expect someone of your caliber to come talk to us. And that really threw me off because, I'm just the average person. I don't know what caliber they were referring to, but of course it was like, oh, this person's at WashU and MBA program, and oh my gosh, amazing. But I'd say don't fall into the trap of hey, we're just gonna stick around WashU where it's comfortable. Get out there and talk to some folks who otherwise would think you would never talk to them. And I'll tell you, I'm all about giving first, and I wanted them to know that this isn't a rare occurrence. This isn't something that is beyond you or undeserving of you because you're in North County or you're a founder of color or whatever the list of excuses are. No, we can all work together and make some great things happen.
Our next question comes from Garrett, a current student at WashU. How do you vet an esports business when many games fall in and out of cultural relevance?
Yeah, so that goes back to my earlier reference of the picks and shovels of the industry, and you can even look at Stadia and the kind of companies that we invest in. Our last cohort, we had Edge, and what they were a payments platform for esports tournaments. So again, you gotta open your mind up a little bit and kind of see the forest beyond the trees or the trees beyond the forest. I don't know which one it is, but you have to really kind of see the entire picture to say, okay, it isn't exactly that Dota is not going to be around in 10 years, but in fact, there is a problem that's being solved by this startup, which is if FIFA or MLS has a FIFA tournament, it's taking them 35 to 40 days to pay out the winner. Whereas now we have a tech platform that confirms the win, and the money is there's a transaction there that happens instantly. So startups are all about solving problems. Think about those problems that might be coming up in that industry and come up with a business that solves it.
So you've worked with a lot of top entrepreneurs and founders. What are some common mistakes you see that should be avoided in a new startup?
It's one of those things. This is a tough one because you gotta fail to move forward. You gotta fall down in order to figure out how to get up, and that's the hard pill you have to swallow about the startup world. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things wrong, and it's all about just not doing the wrong thing twice. And so it's hard for folks to accept that advice because, of course, you don't want to fail. You don't want your business to fail. You don't want to open your doors and then have to close them. But you have to have your mind willing to accept that, hey, failure does happen. It's all about learning from it and then being a better founder, a better entrepreneur the next time. For me, I think with seeing founders on the more advanced side of things, really it's the finances that can really get you in a bind. I think be hyper focused right from the beginning on that. And I don't care if you're just a sophomore in college and you just went through Missouri's website and created an LLC. Hey, go get yourself a business bank account so you're not mixing your business account with your personal account, and have a balance sheet and have an income statement. Even though it's all zeros, you have it the structure is in place. And so as you do advance, you'll be organized financially.
Our next question comes from a current Scandalers internship student. Andrew asks, how do you see esports and the interaction with streaming platforms such as Twitch, YouTube, Mixer? They know that the battle royale concept has been generated a ton of revenue. So,
yeah, it's it's still a challenge on the business side. So you will see that organizations and cities will host an esports tournament, but barely get into the green when it's all said and done as far as the cost and whatnot. And then be even more flabbergasted because, hey, I had like 1.5 million people viewing this. So there is a bit of a clash of culture as well. Just imagine if all of a sudden you started charging people $50 to get on Twitch and watch people play. I think you would see a drastic crash. So it's going to be very difficult to figure out how to truly monetize that, say in the event space where, hey, you can go on YouTube, you can go on Twitch, you can go on Mixer and watch this stuff for free. So I'm interested to see what that transition looks like, because I think that's a huge part of the total addressable market for esports, these huge gaudy numbers that people are putting out. But there's also that cultural piece where I don't think you're just going to all of a sudden start charging people and think that those young customers are going to stick around.
So this question is from Scandalers Center intern Aiden. What was your favorite non-Olin class, if any, at WashU, and how did it help broaden or improve your experience?
Non-Olin class. Well, I'll say all my classes were through Olin just because, full-time MBA. So it's fairly structured, but I will tell you, they took us to Spain to pilot the international program before the international program went live. So that absolutely was an amazing experience. We went to, I went to a Barcelona match. I got to see Messi score a goal. So that was pretty cool. We went to a vineyard and helped them out with a couple of business challenges that they had. And, we were also able just to see that we were also able to meet other MBA students in that country as well. So I think any opportunity that you're able to travel, open your mind up to new cultures, and be willing to, immerse yourself in that culture, even if it is just for a week, that's what really kind of broadens who you are. So that was probably the most enjoyable thing I did outside of the halls and walls of Olin.
Citing your experiences that you mentioned and the connections that you made while you were a student at Olin, an audience member asked, how did you or how do you just go and talk to people? Are you suggesting to simply walk into their office and ask to speak to the founder or CEO, or is there a little bit more tact or needs to it? So.
I'll share a story, and my mom brings it up every now and again. We were a Monsanto / State Farm family, so we moved around a lot. But she said when I was in elementary school, whenever we moved to a new neighborhood, I would go knocking on doors, all throughout the neighborhood, introducing myself and asking if they had kids my age that I can hang out with. So I guess it's just been something I've done from an early age. And I've just continued to do it my entire life. Everywhere I was stationed in the military, I walked into the local high school and asked if I could volunteer coach on the football team. I guess it's just a knack that I've always had. It's different, but again, if you're willing to walk through the door, introduce yourself, and say, hey, I just would love to be a part of the team or be a part of the program and help. People appreciate things like that. I think far too often they find folks that feel like they need something in return or need something up front. but for me, I've always kind of walked in the door just wanting to get the experience. So the big thing when I came to WashU was, okay, I want to work in sports, but what does that mean? I didn't know what it meant. So let's go out there and figure it out. And I walked over the athletics, and, I spent a lot of time putting up signs. And, for any of you that have been to the football games, you probably saw me out there giving students, cowbells and things like that. So there was a bit of grind that I had to do to figure out, okay, is this really what I want to do? Do I want to be in this space? So that's really the best advice I have is first get over yourself and then go out there and introduce yourself. That's the best part. And don't go into it with too much of a selfish motivator either. Because folks are, I'll tell you the hard part about, having the WashU tag behind you. There are folks who are going to think, oh, well, they're going to think they're too good for us or better than us, and they must want something. Go in there without wanting something. Go in there for just to get an experience.
So this question comes from Scandalous intern Will.
Mhm.
Do you have any thoughts of becoming a founder yourself? If so, would your idea be in esports?
Well, I am a founder actually. So I started a e-commerce platform while I was in the program. So again, it was just kind of one of those things where you're learning so much in class, and it's like, oh, let me go try that. So it's interesting. Me and my wife actually competed against each other doing drop shipping. So we set up a Shopify site, and I had a theme, she had a theme. I think hers was like leggings or something. And so, and really just kind of applying some of the principles I was learning in class, simple things like the color of the buttons, like, what's more visually pleasing to a female shopper than a male shopper. Because for the first 2 months, I had 0 sales. But then I really went back to my books and like my marketing classes and things like that, and tried some different things. And all of a sudden it was like, boom, I started getting sales. And so no, I've been down a founder journey already, and, and could possibly do it again. I think it's a lifestyle for sure. And, again, we'll see. I'm not sure what the future holds just yet. I really, I'm in a position at Stadia where, again, I've come into a small organization and had a great, huge impact. And that's what I really enjoy. So I'm kind of getting that startup feel with the organization I'm in right now.
Another audience member asked, what advice do you have for sports-minded entrepreneurs with respect to planning for and around COVID? They're thinking especially of entrepreneurs like Kalia Collier with Surge and things like that.
Yeah, it's gosh, the entire event business is just upside down right now. I think the best thing we have to hope for is that COVID eventually is solved, within the next, I hope, 2 years, or else we're going to move into, made for TV sports, which is what you're seeing right now. You're seeing a bit of it not working, and you're seeing a bit of it working as well. Now, I don't want to upset my friends on either side, but you're seeing that the bubble is working. You're looking at MLS, you're looking at MBA, and you're seeing these huge screens on the side and people's faces because they're doing, Microsoft Teams and basically sitting in the stands. And actually, Mark Cuban said it like 2 months ago. He's like, we're going to have made for TV sports. So I'd say the principles of entrepreneurship still do not change. What problem are you solving? Because that's what it's all about, especially in sports. Is your platform going to help me make more money, or is it going to help me solve some problems that I'm dealing with on a daily basis? And I don't think that's going to change despite all that's going on right now.
So as an investor, do you and Stadia place more importance on the business and its product, or the founder and the C-suite? And what qualities do you look for in a founder?
Gosh, both are equally as important. Now for us, and in comparison to other, I'd say VCs and programs and accelerators, you really have to look at what level that they're investing in. Some invest in companies that are in the idea stage or in the prototype stage. For us, we are more focused on late seed, early A round companies, which means they're already in market, they're already bringing in revenue. So that's really where we're focused. But it does come down to, I mean, once you get beyond that, I mean, you check that block, the first slide deck that you view. But then it's sitting down and speaking with the founders, knowing what their motivation is, knowing what their background is. What did you do before this business, and what are your goals for this business moving forward? That's a huge part. And then the other part is there's a lot of situations, and primarily the situation is with who we deal with. There's multiple founders, there's co-founders. How is this team gelling? How are they working together? Because mind you, our checks in our industry aren't huge, but it's $100,000 that's going into this company. And in the VC space, you can't forget that there's an expected return on your investment. So you do have to look at everything from the business to also the founders, because in entrepreneurship, there are ups and downs. There are things that are going to go wrong. How are they going to deal with it?
So Mike, this is our last question. I just want to say this has been awesome. I've loved hearing all of this. As
I love
someone
the hot seat.
relatively
Thank
new. I'm new to esports, so I'm learning a ton.
Okay.
So last question from the audience is, when does someone know if they're ready for an accelerator program?
So I'd say this, and I truly believe in this. Reach out to accelerators and figure out exactly what they invest in and why they invest in it. I had the craziest call a while back where the founder was almost upset that it was like, hey, you're not a fit for our program. That has nothing to do with you as the founder or your business. It's just every company in our space, every firm has a scope. There's a range to which they invest in. So figure out exactly where that is. Balsa Foundation, first time entrepreneurs from underserved communities. If you are in that bucket, that is the place for you. But if you just have a great idea and you come knocking on Stadia's door, it's not going to be, we're not going far with you. So, but trust me, there are accelerators, there are organizations that focus on the entire spectrum. It's no different than a job interview. Be prepared, before you walk in there. Know exactly what they do and why they do it. And your conversation is either you're not going to get the conversation scheduled because it's not the right fit for your company, or two, you're going to blow the socks off of that person, because just like in an interview, I mean, if someone walks into Stadia, knows exactly who and what we've invested in, knows exactly where the exits are at, and can tell us about the stuff that we're doing and want to continue doing, of course I'm going to be super impressed by that. It's no different when you approach accelerators. Just don't get mad if you didn't do homework and then all of a sudden you get a hard no because, hey, this is in our wheelhouse. So and honestly, I'll say the founders that, even if they are super early or way too early for us, it's all in the way they approach. We can have a great conversation because I will talk to every founder. I will not say, no, you're not in our wheelhouse, I won't talk to you. I will talk to every founder. And if I'm comfortable enough with our discussion, I will then refer you to the folks that, hey, maybe it's an ag tech. Maybe I need to hit up one of my buddies who was in class with me who does ag tech startups now. Or maybe it's Arch Grants, or maybe it's Balsa. There's so many options out there. But I say just make sure you do your homework.
All right, with that, Mike, thank you so much. This was a great event. I want to thank all the students and the intern hosts from the summer who participated throughout the course of the Scandalaris, the summer internship program. You all adapted, took advantage of the virtual opportunities. The startups, you're doing great things for St. Louis and building your companies here. The students helping to move those ventures forward as well, and learning a lot along the way. It's hard to believe this is the final week of the program. It's already been 10 weeks that you've gone through this with us. I also want to thank the Scandalaris Center team for pulling off this great event. Jessica, for her leadership of the internship program overall. It's been great to see how this unfolded over the course of the summer. And Jess Gannon, who was a part of the Scandalaris team who helped set up the internship earlier this summer. Before moving on to a great new role over in the Brown School. So she was a big part of the success of this, along with the entire Scandalaris team, the whole internship program. Mike, you sort of are evading the hot seat here. You know, you said we got to go to Spain and work on a business challenge that a vineyard was facing, and you know, we didn't push you on that one, what that business issue was, to dig into that one, but I'm sure you helped them in many ways with their business challenges on that one. Look, we can't thank you enough for the time that you've spent with us today, and very excited that you're going to be joining us as an entrepreneur in residence and spending even more time with the Scandalaris Center this fall, so our community could take advantage of your resources and background and your willingness to connect with us. So thank you so much for your time today, and we'll see everybody for some of our upcoming events, which are on the Scandalaris Center website. We have an idea bounce coming up in a couple weeks that you should check out, pitch your ideas, come get feedback about those, and we will see everybody virtually soon. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
All right, thanks.